Thanks for checking out this video. We hope that you will learn a little bit more about how to study in this course. Let's begin with one of my favorite quotes with regards to what you can learn in a classroom. If you think you can, you can. And if you think you can't, you're right. I love this quote because it reminds us of the power our mind has. I have absolute and complete faith that every single person can excel in this course. It is set up for your success. The problem is that not everyone has had the same advantages in learning how to study. As you go through this course, you cannot use the same tactics that you did in high school. How well you do in this course is contingent upon how you prepare during the week. As you read through the information on metacognition, hopefully you were able to see the connection between the effort you put in to studying and how well you are prepared to handle a higher level of cognitive assessment. In high school, you may have only approached your studying in a surface level because your assignments and tests only required you to recall information you had memorized. In college, we have much higher expectations, though I am not sure anyone has showed you how that works. In order for you to handle higher level cognitive questions that require you to analyze, evaluate, and create, you must study in a way that prepares you for that. You must study with a deep learning approach. If you continue to simply memorize or wait until the last minute to cram everything in, you will only be able to answer questions that ask to recall the information that you memorized. For example, we could ask you a question like, what is the deficiency syndrome for vitamin C? If you memorize the deficiency syndromes for the vitamins, you could easily tell me that the answer is scurvy. However, you would not be able to answer this question. A friend has swollen bleeding gums due to a vitamin deficiency. What foods should they consume to correct this deficiency? This type of question requires you to study in a different way. This is the deep learning approach. It requires you to ask questions while you read, make connections with other parts you are reading, investigate things that don't make sense, and understand the reason behind things. In your reading assignments, pay attention to the reading objectives at the top of the page. These indicate what you should learn while reading the content. Start by asking yourself questions about the objectives. Is this something familiar to you? What do you know about it? What questions do you have about them? For instance, you might say, oh yeah, I remember my plate. I learned about that in health class. I feel pretty confident about most of the food groups, but I'm not sure how to count foods like pizza that have several food groups in it. And I have no idea what would be considered one serving of pizza, or at least the correct serving for pizza. The idea is that you are engaging with the material. Then as you read the content for that page, you will write down your notes based on those two reading objectives. You should also ask questions as you go through the material. For instance, you might notice that there is no group for fats. Why is that missing? How do you categorize things like oils and mayo? Engaging with the content, asking questions, and reflecting on the material are key concepts in deep learning. The other important reason for spending time with the reading objectives is that this is how our tests are written. We have a very large database of questions, so we take each question, assign it one or two of the reading objectives, and group together questions about that objective. Let's take a look at an example. You have the reading assignment on the left. On the right, you can see the template we use for our test bank. Each of the test questions includes database questions that address the reading objective, categorize foods based on my plate food groups. So in other words, when you take test 1, you will get one of the questions in the database for the reading objective about categorized foods based on my plate question. Every question on each test is set up this way to correspond with those reading objectives. If you have been using the techniques for deep learning where you question, reflect, and engage in the readings about each of the objectives, you will have the information you need to answer the questions. Alternatively, what we see students do is they skip the reading and go straight to the questions because that's what's due each week. They keep taking the questions until they get them right and memorize the answers. The problem is that you will not see the same questions on the tests. You must be able to answer other questions that you read and reflect on that contain similar type of content. One of the best ways to use questions is to challenge yourself to explain why the correct answer is right and the incorrect answers are wrong. For example, we have a question with a lunch that consists of rice and beans with corn on the cob, butter, and a fresh fruit bowl. They want to know which food group is missing. So I would first identify what the food group is for each component of the meal. Rice is a grain, beans are a protein, corn is a starchy vegetable, butter is a fat, and fresh fruit, well, it's a fruit. Thus, I know that we had fruit, protein, and vegetable. The one that is missing is dairy. Now, some may mistake butter for dairy, but it is actually just the fat from milk, making it a fat group. And of course, there's no fat group for my plate. Note that many of these practice questions in the readings are designed to help you learn content that we have identified students struggle with. I know from more than 20 years of experience teaching that students believe butter is a dairy instead of a fat. So we include those type of commonly missed questions or difficult content in the practice so you don't miss those questions on exams. And that brings up another good point. Don't ever leave a question that you don't know why the correct answer is correct. If you missed it, figure out the right answer and why it is the right answer. This goes not just for the reading assignments, but also the module assignments. If you don't know the answer or why, ask your instructor. You can email them and say, hey, I figured out the answer is dairy, but I'm not sure why that is. Can you explain? Make sure, of course, that you specify where the question came from or provide a screenshot of the question so they can find it quickly and get you an answer promptly. I hope you revisit this video often throughout the term to remind yourself of those important study techniques. Thank you for your time and attention.